25, and we're going to pick up with verse 35. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person.
So after receiving Abigail's gift, David told her to return home, and he assured her that he had heeded her voice, and actually the Hebrew says lifted her face. In other words, it's, if I understand it correctly, it's like she is very concerned about the potential of her household being wiped out or whatever, and now she can go home in peace with no concern that he's given her his word, and he will honor that word to her.
And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken, wherefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light.
Now, if you remember earlier, we talked about how he was the servants were preparing this great feast for his house, and who knows whoever was invited. But anyway, when Abigail returned from meeting with David, and she saw him, notice, celebrating like a king. Mm-hmm. So obviously he's a man of means, okay? And he was drunk. So she didn't tell him what she had done. And that's wise. Mm-hmm. You understand? That's wise.
But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone.
It's not that she withheld, but she was straight up with him. After he sobered, she went to him and she told him that what she had done, and evidently he had a heart attack, something, his heart failed, and he died 10 days later. Mm-hmm. Now, don't read into this anything that Abigail said that would think that she was wishing the death of Nabal. That's not what that's stating. She was protecting him. She tells him what she's done, actually to protect him. But when he hears it, evidently it upsets him so bad that he has a heart attack. And then 10 days later, he dies.
And it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord, that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife.
So when you look at this, David is saying that Nabal's death was orchestrated by God. In other words, God has executed vengeance on him. David didn't do it, but God's executed vengeance on him. So when David hears that Nabal has died, he thanks God for keeping him from vindicating himself, and he thanks God for giving Nabal the just reward. Pretty interesting when you think about it. And then afterwards, we don't know how long afterwards. You understand? We're not looking at 1 or 2 days or something, okay? So don't read into it something that isn't there. But afterwards, he sends servants to Abigail. This is interesting. He sends someone else to propose to her for him. And she responds to the proposal by saying, Here's your maidservant. I'll just be a servant to wash the feet of your servants. You understand? I recognize who you are. She's already seeing him as a king. You understand? She sees him in a position of high authority. Abigail's not seeking something for herself. She's already a woman of means, okay? And so she says, I'll just come and serve you. Yes, I'll accept your proposal, okay? So David was remembering her before he ever gets to the throne, isn't he? Which was a wise thing because she was a wise woman. You understand? And I'm sure that he had great admiration for her in that she spared him from doing something extremely foolish. I need this woman around here. I need her wisdom. Okay?
I'm going to pick up with verse 42. And Abigail hasted and arose and rode upon an ass with 5 damsels of hers and went after her. And she went after the messengers of David and became his wife.
So she gets on her donkey. Note this, she's accompanied by 5 servants or slaves, okay? And she goes to David, and she becomes David's wife, okay? So I don't see a lot of hesitation here, do you? No. He recognized who she was. She recognized who he was. He's an asset to me. I'm an asset to him. You understand? And then obviously, I mean, five servants. You're doing all right. I don't have any. You? Yeah. Okay.
But at the time she accepts this proposal, remember, he's hiding in the caves.
Yeah.
And so she's willingly accepting this proposal to go live that life.
While she's running. Well, actually, at this particular time, yeah, she understands Saul's trying to kill him. Mm-hmm. But she does not let that deter her from accepting the proposal.
David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were also, both of them, his wives.
So, he has 2 wives here. He'll add to that collection later on. Mm-hmm. Okay, when he becomes king. All right.
But Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Gallim.
So she was his first wife, okay. And when he ran from Saul, well, Saul just gives his wife, Saul's daughter, to this man Phalti to be his wife. In other words, he takes David's wife and gives her to somebody else, okay?
Something. And the Ziphites came unto Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshimon? Then Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph.
So when Saul learns that from the Ziphites that David was hiding, says in the hill of Hachilah, that he took 3,000 military guys, soldiers, you understand, and he pursues David in the wilderness of Ziph. So he's not keeping his word to David, is he? Mm-mm. Okay.
And Saul pitched in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshimon by the way, but David abode in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness.
So Saul sets up his camp at the hill of Hachilah, and then David is staying in the wilderness. But David has his spies out. You follow me? We'll find that in the next verse.
Therefore David sent out spies and understood that Saul was come in very deed.
So he has men out there, and they understand Saul's come out. They understand where Saul is. Okay.
And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched, and David beheld the place where Saul lay, and Abner the son of Ner, the captain of his host, and Saul lay in the trench, and the people pitched round about him.
So David secretly goes to this place where Saul was camped, and he observed where both Saul and Abner, who was Saul's commander of his army, where they were lying. And Saul was in the camp with all the people around him. Now you got to get a picture of this. I mean, you've got your army surrounding you. You've got your general of your army there with you, and so you're very protected, right?
Then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother to Joab, saying, Who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee.
Now think about this. Here you got army there. And David is saying to Ahimelech and Abishai, who's his cousin, who'll go down with me to the camp where Saul is? And Abishai said, I'll go with you. Yeah. Now think about that one. Yeah, I don't mind getting in harm's way.
So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster, but Abner and the people lay round about him.
Now you understand, when the army's out there, surely to goodness somebody said and watch. You know, we stood watch all the time, okay? But anyway, they secretly get in there to where Saul is sleeping, and his spear is right there by his head. That's what bolster is referring to. It's there by his head. And Abner and the soldiers are around him. And so they're getting ready to do something here.
Then said Abishai to David, God hath delivered thy enemy into thy hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time.
So Abishai said, all right, here's your chance. God's delivered him into our hand. I'll just take the spear and I'll kill Saul. No, I won't strike but one blow. Okay. I'll make it count.
Yeah.
But it'll just be one blow. All right.
And David said to Abishai, Destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless?
Now, here again, you see David say this, said this previously, but he tells Abishai, no. How can you stretch forth your hand to kill the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? Now think about that. Abishai, Saul is still anointed to be king. Yes, the Spirit of God's left him, but he's still set apart by God to be king. No, we're not going to kill him. I'm not going to stretch out my hand against him. If I did, I would be guilty of killing the one that God put in the position.
David said, Furthermore, as the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish.
So David was certain that Saul's day of death was coming. It was either going to come by the hand of God, like it did with Nabal, or that it come from the hand of the enemy, probably the Philistines. You know, he'll get what he deserves in his day, but I'm not going to stretch out my hand against him. Okay.
The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. But I pray thee, take thou now the spear that is at his bolster, and the cruse of water, and let us go. So David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, and they got them away, and no man saw it, nor knew it, neither awakened, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them.
Note that it's a deep sleep from the Lord, okay? So this, pretty risky business. You're going to go to the king who is surrounded with an army and take the sword or the spear that's right there at his head and his container of water and leave the camp. Yeah, that's not for the weak. For the scared, you understand. Abishai was one of David's mighty men, okay.
Then David went over to the other side and stood on the top of a hill afar off, a great space being between them. And David cried to the people and to Abner the son of Ner, saying, Answerest thou not, Abner? Then Abner answered and said, Who art thou that criest to the king?
So you understand, David is a brave man too. Mm-hmm. He didn't send somebody else. He's down there right in the middle of all this, you understand? And then when he gets the spear in the water, then he gets some distance between them. But then he just shouts out. He calls out loud. And of course, Abner, being the general of the army, he's rebuking David. How dare you? You know, this is the king, and what are you doing calling out into the king, to the king, yeah, understand?
And David said to Abner, Art not thou a valiant man? And who is like to thee in Israel? Wherefore then hast thou not kept thy lord the king? For there came one of the people in to destroy the king thy lord. This thing is not good that thou hast done. As the Lord liveth, you are worthy to die, because you have not kept your master, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is, and the cruse of water that was at his bolster.
So Abner rebukes David, and then David in turn rebukes Abner. Mm. You didn't properly guard the king. Who are you? He could have been put to death. You should get the death penalty for negligence of duty. You neglected to protect the king. Because, he could have been killed tonight. See if you can find his spear and his container of water. That's proof.
And Saul knew David's voice and said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And David said, It is my voice, my lord, O king.
Here you still see David submitted to him. And Saul so hypocritical. Is that your voice, my son? Mm-hmm. Obviously he was his son-in-law, but he gave his wife away, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he said, It's me. Know what he calls him? My lord, O king. You understand? David still sees Saul as the king of Israel, even though David is anointed to be the king. He's not taking that role on himself. It's not time. And everything has to be done in the fullness of time. If God speaks something to your heart, you let that come to pass. Don't you make that come to pass. Okay?
And he said, Wherefore doth my Lord thus pursue after his servant? For what have I done, or what evil is in my hand?
So David questions him again, as he done earlier. Why are you pursuing me? What have I done to you? What's the evil in me? Mm-hmm.
Now therefore, I pray thee, let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord had stirred thee up against me, let him accept an offering. But if they be the children of men, cursed be they before the Lord, for they have driven me out this day from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go serve other gods.
And so David requests to Saul, makes it, I want you to listen to me. If the Lord stirred you up against me, then let him accept an offering. If it's people that stirred you up against me, then may they be cursed before the Lord, because they've driven me out of my inheritance. And they're telling me to leave Israel, where the true God is, and to go somewhere where they serve other gods.
Now therefore, let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord, for the king of Israel is come out to seek a flea, as when one doth hunt a partridge in the mountains.
So David requests Saul to not kill him.
Yeah.
Don't kill me. I'm insignificant. You understand? David is not seeing himself as someone of great importance. I'm insignificant, yet you are persistently hunting me. You're taking an army and coming out against me, and I haven't done anything wrong.
Then said Saul, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will no more do thee harm, because my soul was precious in thy eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool, and have erred exceedingly.
Well, I mean, he's admitting the truth there. You know, I sinned against you, David. Come on and return back home. I won't seek to harm you anymore. Yeah, right. I mean, after all, David has spared his life, but David's smart enough that he's not falling for this line. He's heard that line before, you understand?
And David answered and said, Behold the king's spear, and let one of the young men come over and fetch it.
And so David is not even wanting to keep the spear, you understand, or the container of water. Look, here's the spear. Here, come on over, send one of the men over, and I'll return it to you. I just wanted to show you what I could do, but I didn't do it because there was no evil in my heart toward you, is the essence of it, okay?
The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness, for the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I would not stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed.
So here again, David's addressing Saul, and he just saying, let the Lord repay every man for his righteousness, for his faithfulness. He reminded Saul, listen, I had the opportunity to kill you, but I refused to put forth my hand. And he calls him there. He said, I refuse to put forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. He's telling Saul that.
Mm-hmm. And behold, as thy life was much set by this day in my eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation.
So basically, David's just asking for reciprocal action, okay? I valued your life, and I'm requesting that the Lord return that favor on me by delivering my life and deliver me from tribulation. May I reap what I've sown. You with me? That's the essence of it.
Then Saul said to David, Blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt both do great things, and also shalt still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place.
So this is an interesting statement here. Before leaving, Saul said to David, may you be blessed. You'll do great things, and you'll prevail. He's finally getting a revelation. Try as I may, I can't kill this dude. But that doesn't mean he wants to stop, you understand? Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, jealousy will cause you to do stupid stuff. You understand? Pride will cause you to do stupid stuff. And it's to your own hurt. Let the Lord handle things. Don't take matters into your own hand.
Chapter 27. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines, and Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel, so I shall escape out of his hand.
So obviously David did not trust Saul to keep his word. So he thought it would be in his best interest if he just got out of the land of Israel, go to the land of the Philistines, because he knew Saul wouldn't go to the Philistines because they were arch enemies with Saul. He won't come over here. So I need to get out of Dodge City, as we would say, okay?
And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish the son of Maoch, king of Gath.
So David and his little army is 600 men, and of course all of his possessions, his wives, and the families of all his soldiers. They went to Gath, which was a city of the Philistines, and Achish was actually the king there in Gath at that time.
And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him.
So that's when Saul stopped pursuing David, when David went into the enemy's territory, the Philistine territory. Saul did not go into the Philistine territory to try to find David.
And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thy eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee?
So David goes to King Achish, and here again you see a humble attitude here, and he says to this king, I don't need to be in the royal city with the king. So if you just designate some place for me to live outside of the royal city, that would be great.
Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day.
So Achish honors David's request and gives to David the city of Ziklag. And that's part of Israel's territory.
Mm-hmm. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months.
So 14 or 16 months he's living in out of his inheritance, living among the enemy that he has allied with. That sounds paradoxical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But he's at peace with the enemy at that time, okay?
And David and his men went up and invaded the Gershurites and the Jezerites and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to shore, even unto the land of Egypt.
So this is David's livelihood. He has to provide for his people. But now note this. He's taken territory for Judah, for Israel. You understand they haven't taken all the territory at this time that God had given them. And so David would take guys out, like he raided the Gershonites and also the Girzites and the Amalekites. And that's where people, it says, that the children of Israel had not driven out, right? And so he takes their territory from shore all the way to the land of Egypt. And what that means is any of their possessions is his, because he's killing all of them, and then he's taking their possessions. That's how they're gaining their livelihood, their wealth, okay?
And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish.
So when David and his men attacked the place, they killed everyone. And then they took their livestock and their clothing as spoiled, No use in leaving it there, right? No, that's what's providing for them at that time.
And Achish said, Whither have ye made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of Jerahmeelites. Thank you. And against the south of the Kenites.
And so David was not leaving anybody to rat on him, okay? And so when Achish would ask him, what you've been doing, so obviously he is having communication with Achish, you understand? And he would just tell him, well, I went out on the southern part of Judah, and, the Jerahmeelites, I took them out, and in the southern area, the Kenites, I took them out and all, and so he's not just being 100% straight up with Achish, is he? Okay.
And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner, all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines.
So the entire time that David dwelt in the land of the Philistines, he killed everyone in every place they raided, so that no one could expose him to King Achish. Okay? Now, this will give you a little insight into later on when he wanted to build the temple for the Lord, and the Lord said, You can't because you're a man of bloodshed.
Yeah.
Okay?
And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him, therefore he shall be my servant forever.
So Achish thinks that Israel will be turned against David, that they would hate him for what he had done. And so he said, David will be my servant as long as he lives. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. David was a man after God's own heart. Mm-hmm. So even though he was a man of blood, he was a man of bloodshed, what's he doing? He's taking territory that the Israelites had not taken before. He's doing things that should have been done. Okay? He's driving out the enemy. Now, he may be doing it in a deceptive way, but they were to utterly destroy. You follow me? Mm-hmm. And so don't read into that he's the bad guy. And a lot of people, they think that you coexist. No, you don't coexist with your enemy. You follow me? Somewhere down the line, you got to drive that enemy out. And David doesn't coexist with Achish all that long, 16 months. Okay.
Chapter 28. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. Now
this puts David in a precarious situation, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And so the Israel and Philistines getting ready to engage in battle, and Achish is saying to David, all right, now you're going to go with me. He sees him as a great warrior, and you're going to join forces with me, and we're going to go fight against Israel.
And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of my head forever.
So David says, all right, you'll see what we can do. We'll prove ourselves to you. And so Achish, he just decided to make David his chief bodyguard permanently. Boy, David had earned this man's trust, you understand?
Yeah. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him, and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land.
And see, we know that Samuel died from previous reading, okay, and buried. And Saul did some good things, okay? One of the things that they were told in the law was you were not to have witches and mediums and spirits, these demonic people people operating by familiar spirit, you're not to have them in the land. Okay, they were to destroy them. Well, Saul had taken upon him to expel these mediums and spiritists from the land of Israel. Okay.
And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem, and Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa.
So now we're getting this battle set in array, the Philistines against the Israelites, and the Philistines are at Shunem, and Paul and his army, Saul and his army are set up at Gilboa. Okay?
And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled.
So, Saul sees them, and he's afraid. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's where we're going to stop. Our time's up. We'll pick back up with this in our next session. Okay? Father, I thank you that you bless us indeed. You enlarge our territory. Your hands with us to keep us from evil so that we do not cause pain. And I thank you for blessing us and keeping us and for making your face to shine upon us and being gracious unto us. You lift up your countenance upon us and you give us peace. So, Lord, we're glad to invite you to rise up. Let your enemies be scattered and let those who hate you flee before you. Amen. Amen.